Hi, my name's Alan, and today I'm going to show you how to make Reaper's mask from Overwatch. So one of my good friends named Jeffrey plays a lot of Overwatch, and he's really good at the game. He plays at a high competitive level and streams a lot online, so I wanted to make him something from the video game since I have a 3D printer. I decided to make the Reaper mask from one of his favorite characters in the game. The first step to building the mask is to go online and find a 3D model. I was really lucky to find that this guy named Ricardo Salamalo had already made the mask. He did a great job and it looks like it's straight out of the video game. I want to give him credit for making this model because I am using the direct model. And I'll leave a link to the details in the description. The mask is for free to download, and so I downloaded it and it comes in a zip file. The mask is in multiple pieces because the whole thing is too large to print on most 3D printers' build plates. After unzipping all the files, I loaded each one into my 3D printing software, or slicer. I use Cura because it's for free and it also has great versatility with my printer. There are 9 pieces to the mask, ranging from just the sides of the upper half to the eyes, and also some pieces to hold the thing together, like these little pegs right here. After about a week of printing, I finally had all the pieces to the mask. I did make a lot of mistakes on the way because I'm learning how to use my 3D printer, so if you know how to 3D print, it'll probably take you about maybe 4 days, maybe a little bit longer. Finally, I had all the pieces to the mask. I used super glue to attach everything together, but the pegs were definitely a big help. It comes together at multiple different angles, and it's easy to have the mask fall apart as you're trying to put it together. Having the pegs there holds it together even though super glue might not be there at the time, so I'm very thankful that Ricardo added these to his designs. After all the pieces were glued together, the next step was to start sanding it. And oh boy, did this take a lot of sanding. The majority of this project was me just sitting at my desk and sanding and having a vacuum cleaner nearby to start vacuuming up all the dust. Sandpaper's helpful, but sand sponges really do the job for getting into all the crevices that this mask has. After the mask was fully sanded, it was time to apply the Bondo. Since the mask is constructed out of several pieces, there are cracks and seams where each piece meets each other. The Bondo works by mixing a paste with a small amount of activator, and when mixed together, you have a few minutes before the paste fully hardens. I applied the paste in each crack of the mask, and eventually it dried. After it was fully dried, it was time to sand down the material, and it looked like one solid piece. After everything was sanded, it was time for me to start painting. Sadly, I had camera issues and I lost all the footage of me painting the mask, but it is a fairly simple process so I can still walk you through it. For the first coat of paint, I started with a primer. It is fairly basic. I applied layer after layer, checking the mask to make sure no rough spots were left over from the sanding process. After making sure everything was smooth and ready, I moved on to the base coat. I used just this white enamel spray can that I got from Walmart. After applying 3 coats of white, I moved on to the accent paint. For the final step, I masked off the body of the mask and painted the cheekbones with a silver metallic paint that I also got from Walmart. And here's the mask with the main paint job done. I'm really happy with the way it turned out and it looks a lot better than I thought it would have. Although my paint work could have been a little bit better, I'm sure I'll improve in the future. Now it's time for my favorite step, the weathering process. This will make all the details pop and really bring the mask to life. A lot of these techniques I learned from Adam Savage in his YouTube series about weathering, and I'll definitely leave a link in the description to those videos. Next, I took a wet sponge and wiped down all the areas I planned to weather. I started with this small cheekbone area because I wanted to darken the areas to make it look like a weathered piece of metal. Next, I used a paintbrush and applied a liberal amount of black acrylic paint to the area. I made sure to get in the areas that I wanted to darken up and I let it sit for a few seconds. After waiting for a little bit, I used a paper towel to wipe away the paint. As you can see, the black acrylic paint has gone into all the little crevices in the mask and really making the details pop, while also darkening the metal paint to make it look a bit more realistic. Here you can see how much of a difference it really makes from one side to another. After that, I repeated the same steps on the other side and also added a few other coats to make sure I got all the details I wanted on the mask. After I was done with the cheekbones, I moved on to the face. For the face, I used a pure white spray paint, so I wanted to make it look more like bone. I have this ivory colored acrylic paint that I used the same techniques as I did with the cheekbones, by using a wet sponge, a liberal amount of paint, and then wiping it off. I repeated the steps until I was happy with the texture and look that the mask had. After finishing the paint job, it was time to move on to the final steps. When looking at reference pictures of Reaper, I noticed that his eyes and mouth were perfectly pitch black and I wanted to replicate this. I decided to do it by using black cloth. After going to my hobby store and picking up some cheap black cotton, I noticed it was a little bit too difficult to see through. I decided to put it in the wash a few times to thin out the fabric to make it easier to see through. The technique I used for attaching the fabric to the mask was fairly simple. I just used super glue and a pair of scissors to cut out the shape in the fabric. After I had the shapes cut out, I would apply a small amount of super glue to one area and attach the fabric. After it dried, I'd pull the fabric tight across the area so the fabric was nice and smooth across the whole. After everything had dried, I cut away the excess fabric and repeated the process on the other two areas. And the mask is finally done! It looks amazing and I'm really happy with the way it turned out. Of course there's things I could have improved on, like some of the paintwork and the sanding, but as I tackle projects in the future, I'm sure I'll get better at them. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and it's inspired you to make something of your own. I understand a lot of people don't have a 3D printer or have access to one, so I plan to upload videos in the future where I don't use specialty tools, so that if someone wants to recreate something in one of my videos, it's a lot more accessible. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys want to see my projects in the future, make sure you subscribe, and if you have any suggestions for things you'd like to see me build, leave a comment below and I'll definitely take it into consideration.